Today we're looking at things that actually made it into Mario games before Nintendo was forced to remove them. Whether it be because they were too graphic, disturbing, insulting, or just plain creepy, I'm gonna tell you exactly why they had to be cut. And we're gonna start with something actually pretty gruesome from Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Now, if you head down this sketchy alley and into this even sketchier thieves' hideout, you'll notice it's completely run down with trash and papers scattered everywhere. However, this area was originally going to be significantly more sinister, because when looking at the initial Japanese release of this game, you can clearly see a chalk outline of a once dead toad surrounded by blood splatter everywhere. This detail completely changes the vibe, implying that this character wasn't just some petty thief, but a full-on murderer. So Nintendo decided that this scene was too gruesome for the international release. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because it's surprising how many more things Nintendo had to cut with even more wild reasons why. Like Mario Party 2, for example, actually had some pretty brutal scenes in it in the original Japanese version. Take the ending cutscene for Western Land. In the original release, the characters use realistic revolvers with actual smoke effects. Bowser literally gets shot right in front of you by a Mario character using a real gun. However, for the international release, Nintendo decided that that was a little too intense. So the realistic firearms were entirely swapped out for bright yellow toy cork guns. The smoke effects were completely removed, and instead of bullets, you just see a cork shootout accompanied by a much goofier sound effect. Moving on though, because now we have to take a closer look at the costumes in Mario Odyssey. Because there's one outfit in particular that had to be heavily altered for the Chinese release: the pirate outfit. In most other regions, it's a pretty standard costume, with nothing really dark or malicious about it. However, in the Chinese version, the skull on Mario's hat and the eye patch were completely removed to erase any reference of piracy. The outfit's name was even changed from the pirate outfit to the noble outfit. This big change was done to comply with strict regional guidelines in China, which heavily restricts the depiction of illegal activities, cults, or any skull imagery. And since a pirate is essentially just a gang member of the seas, Mario's design had to be completely altered in this version of the game. Now, the cut features only get more bizarre from here, with even wilder reasons behind them, like one that was removed for physically hurting players. But first, a YouTube spy told me it's impossible to subscribe and like the video at the same time. Let's see if you can prove him wrong. Thanks. Next up, we have an enemy whose actual name had to be changed altogether for some pretty unsettling reasons. We're talking about the Red Bones enemy from Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. This enemy is basically just a buffed up Dry Bones, acting as a much stronger version of the standard enemy. However, in the original Japanese release of this game, he had a much darker name. Instead of Red Bones, he was literally called Bloody Dull Bones. This implies that the red color of his skeleton is actually stained from the blood of the enemies he's killed. I guess that would make sense since he's a much stronger variant, meaning he would have slaughtered way more foes than a standard Dry Bones. Either way, this name was altered in all other releases, since the original referenced a much darker, violent backstory that simply wasn't suitable for a Mario game. But we're going right back to Mario Party 2, because there wasn't just animations that had to be removed in this game, but various voice lines as well in the international release. Specifically, Wario and Luigi's losing voice lines, which sounded like this in the original Japanese version.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
So, did you catch what was wrong with them, or why they had to be changed? Well, it's because they directly reference religion by saying the phrase, "oh my god." So, in the international releases, they swapped it out so they say this instead.
No, I missed.
Yeah, so Luigi just screams, and Wario actually says some words in German, if you didn't catch that. And we're not quite done with this game just yet, because there is one more tiny interesting detail that was removed in the international release. And it has to do with this older Toad. Just look at him. Do you see what's missing? Well, this is what he looks like in the international release. Yeah, Nintendo removed his pipe entirely just to get rid of all references to tobacco in other versions. So don't smoke, kids, or you'll become a toad. Now let's move on to the Mario Kart series, because the original game had some interesting visuals to say the least. See, in every single victory animation in Super Mario Kart on the SNES, all the characters pop open a bottle of champagne to celebrate. However, there were two specific animations that actually had to be changed for international releases. These were the animations for Peach and Bowser. Originally, they didn't just drink a little bit of the champagne, they straight up chugged it. Bowser ends up spilling it all over himself, and Peach's skin literally turns flush red from downing the whole bottle. So both of these animations got completely changed for all other releases. Instead of chugging it, Bowser simply holds up his bottle proudly, and Peach just tosses hers up and down in the air. Unsurprisingly, this was all due to Nintendo not wanting to show off or promote excessive drinking in a Mario game. Interestingly enough, this is not the only Mario game where drinking references had to be removed. This was also the case in a pretty obscure game called Wario Land 2. In the original Japanese release, there were these penguin enemies that would actually throw full pints of beer at Wario. If you got hit by one, Wario would look visibly drunk, turn completely purple, and clumsily stumble around the stage. The status effect he was in was even officially called Drunk Wario. So in later international versions, the penguins threw heavy bowling balls at Wario instead. Getting hit puts him in the exact same dizzy, stumbling state, but it was renamed to Crazy Wario to avoid the alcohol reference entirely. Mario 64 DS has some pretty interesting exclusions, specifically in the South Korean version. And it doesn't even have to do with the main game, but rather the minigames that were included as a fun bonus mode. Because there is a specific minigame where you're playing a bunch of card games at a casino against Luigi. This caused not only this minigame to be straight up removed, but all of the minigames that were included in this game were all taken out of this version. Jeez. And this was due to South Korea's extremely strict laws regarding simulated gambling in video games, since real gambling is totally illegal and looked down upon for South Korean citizens. And it wasn't just Mario 64 DS that was affected by these strict laws, because Mario Party DS was hit too. Minigames that heavily referenced gambling, like Shuffleboard Showdown and Chips and Dips, were straight up removed from the game. They even had to completely rework the Bowser's pinball machine board due to its casino aesthetics. You know that slot machine area? Well, they completely swapped it out for a UFO minigame, and that roulette-style Wheel of Wonder got replaced with a whack-a-mole game too. It's honestly wild how much they had to tweak just to get the game released over there. This next one comes from Mario Kart 64, specifically what's written in the signs on certain tracks. If you compare the original Japanese version of this game to the international release, you'll notice the signs look completely different. They still mostly say the same things, but the color schemes, fonts, and logos were totally altered. This is because in the Japanese version, these signs were all direct parodies of real-life companies. One of them was actually a parody of a company that is honestly pretty dark for a kid's game. But first, let's start with Yoshi 1, which is a parody of the gas company Mobil 1. Koopa Air was a parody of Goodyear, with the font matching up almost exactly, and Luigi IP was a parody of AGIP, the Italian gas company. But then the sponsorships get a bit weird, because you can find signs for Mario Row, which is a blatant parody of Marlboro, the cigarette company. Having a massive cigarette ad parody is really odd, and honestly kind of a twisted thing to sneak into a game aimed at kids. Because of this, the Mario Row sign was changed the most during localization, as Nintendo simply changed it to read Mario Star in all future releases, which removes the original reference entirely. But back to Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, because there is another incredibly subtle change that I doubt anyone really even noticed. During this game, there are various sections where you play as a kidnapped Peach, and she frequently interacts with a massive supercomputer named Tech. In the international release, Tech is depicted with a glowing blue eye, which already heavily resembles the evil computer HAL 9000 from the iconic movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. However, the original Japanese version had an even stronger resemblance. Instead of the blue eye, Tech's eye was the exact same red as HAL's. The color was ultimately changed for the international releases due to concerns over copyright infringement. Sticking with this same game, we have one more notable thing that had to be censored. It has to do with a specific item called Chocola Cola, which Admiral Bobbery asked for as his final dying request. If you look at the item icon in the Japanese version though, you'll notice the liquid isn't the purple color we're used to, but rather it's red. While that might sound like an innocent palette swap, it makes total sense when you look at the original Japanese name for the item. It wasn't Chocola Cola at all, but rather Vintage Red. This confirms that it was actually a bottle of red wine in the original release. With this uncensored context, Admiral Bobbery's backstory becomes even more tragic, because his final dying request was simply to have one last bottle of wine, presumably to numb the pain of his final moments. This next one has to do with the Inkling character in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because she has this very specific pose where she flexes her right arm and places her left hand on her bicep. While in Japan, this is simply a way to show triumph and encouragement, in certain parts of the world, like Latin America and parts of Europe, this is actually seen as an offensive gesture that means something not so nice. To correct this, Nintendo quickly released a patch removing her left hand from her right bicep. So it simply looks like a standard strongman pose instead. What's really interesting about this though is that this is the second time Nintendo had to censor this exact gesture. Because if we look all the way back to Mario RPG on the SNES, Bowser does this exact same pose when he wins a battle. This was changed in all international releases to him just thrusting his fist up into the air. And that change carried over into the recent Switch remake as well. Honestly, it's pretty funny that this pose managed to slip through the cracks 2 separate times. Now let's look at Mario World, at an interaction between Yoshi and a certain creature that he may have been a bit too mean to in the past. I'm talking about the dolphins, specifically in the level Vanilla Secret 3. In the original Japanese version of this game, as you're platforming across these dolphins, you can use Yoshi's eating ability and straight up swallow them whole. However, in international releases, you simply cannot do this. If Yoshi uses his tongue, the dolphins can't be eaten. While no official reason from Nintendo has ever been given for this change, fans have heavily speculated that it's due to dolphins being seen as highly intelligent creatures in the West, meaning eating them would have been viewed as animal cruelty. But honestly, this might have simply been a weird gameplay glitch, since in the GBA re-release of this game in 2004, you could eat the dolphins in all releases worldwide. So maybe Nintendo went back on their decision, seeing as they didn't think it was that cruel of a gesture, or maybe it was really just a bug all along. Moving on though, because we have something that was changed since it actually was physically hurting players. You might be asking how that's even possible. It's just a video game, right? Well, take certain minigames in the original Mario Party on the N64, where the only goal was to rotate the control stick as fast as possible. It sounds simple enough, but to hit those super fast speeds, players quickly realized it was way easier to use the palm of their hand instead of just their thumb. Now, with modern controllers, this might not be a huge issue, but the original N64 analog stick was made of hard plastic, and it actually had these bumps on it too. So when you pressed down hard and aggressively rotated that stick, those ridges would literally dig right into your skin. This caused players to get severe bruises and blisters just from trying to get a high score. The injuries got so bad that Nintendo completely avoided porting the game for years. It was never released on the Wii or Wii U Virtual Console, even while other older Mario Party games were. And when the game finally did get a re-release on the Switch in 2022, Nintendo actually had to add a strict warning message right at the start, directly advising players not to use the palms of their hands, but rather their fingers. Interesting. Let me know if there were any things today that you wished weren't cut out of later versions, and I will see you all later.